What we're going to do now is go to a story that's sadly mirrored right across the Callander region, and that's the struggle for some couples to conceive and have a child. Obviously, there is IVF, which is something of a postcode lottery and is very draining emotionally. We're going to meet one couple now who've certainly been on an emotional roller coaster. They've been talking to our reporter, Helen Steele.
You are ready for school. You are ready for school. Oh, hello.
The incredible beginning of Oliver James Hill's life.
Congratulations.
But it's the end of a very long journey for his parents.
Come on.
Maria and James had been trying for a baby for 2 years when they decided to seek help.
So we'd gone to GP and I had some blood tests and you had some tests done. And that's where we found that we'd need referring for fertility.
James had a blockage, meaning they could never conceive naturally.
Well, yeah, we're devastated over it, really. Everybody thinks it's your God-given right to have children. You go through life planning and it wants to be that.
They were referred to the Yorkshire Fertility Clinic, where doctors began the long process of IVF. The first 2 attempts failed.
We just hugged each other and just said it'll happen. It will happen.
I think that might be his little coming home outfit.
And on the 3rd attempt, it did. At 6 weeks, a scan confirmed it.
We were just crying, weren't we?
Yeah.
And we saw our heartbeat. We were just like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Callander was there when they heard that heartbeat again at Huddersfield Royal Infirmary.
Okay, so baby's heartbeat here. Yeah?
It's just reassuring and check when we come in. It's nice to see you. Oh, a little miracle.
It's a wide fertility service that we provide across the whole of West Yorkshire.
And Oliver is just one of hundreds of little miracles that are born every year thanks to the Yorkshire Fertility Clinic.
I think about 15, 20 years ago we would have had limitations in the treatment that we could offer to couples such as Maria, but the technologies that have improved have allowed couples like Maria and her husband to get pregnant.
Hello. Thousands of childless couples could soon be given free fertility treatment on the NHS.
Maria's doctor says those improvements were only possible because the NHS began funding it back in 2003.
So the NHS is crucial in funding research, but also the NHS is important because it provides treatment for couples who otherwise would be unable to afford treatment.
But yeah, not long. What are you going to do with it?
The NHS has already played an important part in Maria's life for the past 15 years.
You just come to see that condition is next in clinic.
She's a lung cancer specialist in the same hospital in which she's due to give birth. Like her doctor, she knows its value.
This is a huge gift for us for the IVF, but obviously in my line of work, patients needing life-saving treatment, life-prolonging treatment. Without that, and I know the cost of drugs is huge. So without that NHS, it's just not, you just can't imagine it.
And on the 22nd of June, at the same hospital Maria helped save those lives, she brought a new one into the world.
We're having the cesarean because it's still breech. So yeah, this is where our journey now. Get to meet our baby in
Can't wait.
3 hours.
Is that all right? Yeah. I'll have a quick feel and have a listen. Is that all right?
Yeah. After a few checks, it was time to walk to theatre.
Do you feel the pulse right here? Yeah.
Then at 12 minutes to 10...
You are ready for school. You are ready for school. Oh, hello. Congratulations. Congratulations, guys.
After a minute, baby Oliver's brought over.
Can I bring my lunch to see you on
But there's slight concern that he isn't crying. But after some attention, Oliver is handed back to his mum.
What did you say? £8
Just under £9.
A couple of hours later and Daddy's on duty.
Yeah, I think he's got dog nose.
And time for a final thought before they take their new son home.
Think it would have been possible without the NHS?
No. We've just done, I don't even know what words to say. No, I think we're just so grateful.
Yeah.
5 years, we've been waiting for you, mister.
What a very happy ending. Well, let's go live to Helen now and find out how baby Oliver is doing with Maria and James. Helen, in Huddersfield, over to you.
Yes, here he is now at home. He looks very happy to be here, doesn't he? He's had 2 weeks to freshen up and get camera ready and do quite a lot of growing, it looks like, Maria.
Yes, he definitely has. He lost some weight in the beginning, which the midwife said were normal, but he's back to his birth weight, feeding like a trooper, day and night.
Yeah, turning into a little milk monster, isn't it?
Yeah, he is.
And James, you said you'd be doing the cooking and cleaning, or I think we called it cooking and cleaning. Have you been doing that?
I've stuck to my word. I've done all the cooking, all the cleaning.
Yeah,
I've got to make sure my wife's fed and my baby's happy.
Being a good husband, good dad.
And you let Mike the cameraman and I in some quite personal moments. I mean, there must have been a good reason for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's working in the NHS, being supported through IVF by my colleagues in the NHS and receiving the treatment in the NHS. It's just good to say something so positive. And the 70th anniversary is what better time to celebrate a newborn.
Exactly, and all that's left to say now is a massive congratulations. So these are from Calendar, and it's a double celebration because after today you'll never have to see Mike the cameraman and I ever again.
Oh, that's a bit sad.
It is. So I tell you what, we'll have a cup of tea now and a bit of a chat. So in that time we'll hand over back to Duncan in York and we'll crack on. Back to you.
Helen, thanks very much indeed. A perfect delivery there for Maria and James. But what about the future? Well, we gathered some health professionals together at the Thackeray Medical Museum in Leeds to really find out what they believe has to happen to ensure the future of the NHS is successful over the next 70 years.
It's 35 years since I started my nurse training here, and the site of the museum is what used to be Ashley Wing, so care of the elderly. One of the biggest challenges I think that we have across the NHS is workforce, so being able to get people that want to come in and have careers in the NHS. We don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses, so we're increasingly looking at different ways that we can make those careers attractive, and also to think about different roles that we can develop. So how pharmacists, for example, can work within general practice, how paramedics might have a role within general practice, mental health workers working alongside GPs.
I am hopeful that it will survive the next 70 years and our children will have the best services. The challenges are we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses, and we don't have enough money to embrace new technologies, new treatments. We need our patients and our people and our children to be educated how to look after their health. We need to put more emphasis on prevention of disease rather than treating it.
The NHS workforce is in crisis at the moment, so if we are going to secure the future, we have to resolve these issues. One of the great changes would would be to see the NHS less buffeted by all the political parties as a hot potato they can kick around. In actual fact, it's too important, it's too precious for that, and we ought to come to a considered view as to how the NHS should be run, ensure the resource goes into it so that patients can be looked after at the point of need, and that research findings can be quickly implemented for the benefit of patient care.
Over 3/4 of the NHS workforce are women, but when you look at very senior positions, so we're getting small in number, less than half, are occupied by women. And then when you look at representation of people from black and minority ethnic groups, it's even smaller again. So there's a lot more that we need to do in order to get that better balance in the most senior positions and recognise that that'll have a positive impact. The bigger we can have a change on the experiences of staff working in the organisation and the service that we provide to local citizens.
The single thing that would make the biggest difference is to recognise that the original NHS constitution talks about people's responsibilities, and I think to protect the NHS for the next 70 years, we as people, patients, carers, have a responsibility to live our lives in a way that supports the NHS, to look after our families, to eat, drink, smoke less, to exercise a little bit more, because that's the thing that will end up protecting the NHS for the next 70 years.